जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय श्रील प्रभुपाद हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी हरे कृष्णा. So we completed until verse 30 last week, right? So this class was actually sorry, one moment. Who can say what did we do last week?
In the last verses, we understood that one. It about this creation, and all demigods will serve Lord Krishna's instructions, and we need not depend on our common sense. We need to just accept the Vedic
Correct.
wisdom.
Correct. And basically, the universal form of the Lord, the description of that had started, right? So Krishna
Yeah,
mentioned various things about himself, right? So Shukadev Goswami started off stating how one should control his posture and all that. And actually, it is quite important. So it is quite important, meaning the start of something important is also carried out uh, in the right manner, right? For example, when we want to initiate a project in a company, we first talk about the planning, the benefits of it, and all that, right? So that is a kind of a very important thing which helps us take a decision whether we should or we should not go forward. Similarly, here, this is also like sitting in the right manner is very important because there is a dedication and commitment required for us to walk on this path, the spiritual path, right? If we do not have the dedication, there will be a time where there will come a time when we will find the process either boring or very challenging, and we may lose interest. And to avoid that situation from happening, there is certain physical action or a preparation of our mentality that is required. And that is one of the thing is sitting in the right posture. And you might have seen we have such kind of statements spoken in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter as well. So when Krishna is explaining Dhyan Yoga, he also starts off with Shucho Deshe Pratisthapya, meaning in the right place, a clean place, one should sit. Then he talks about how one should sit. So here also Shukadev Goswami starts off in the same manner, how to sit, how to regulate your breath and all that. And then this right posture, physical right activity helps us cultivate the right mentality. And then that right mentality helps us understand the Lord in a better manner. And now, you take that logic forward, you will understand that when people speak about Krishna, Prabhupada always mentions then one should hear about Krishna from a bona fide representative of the Lord. Now, initially, it may sound to be क्या फर्क पड़ता है कृष्णा के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, right? So whether some anybody who talks about Krishna, it is good only. So at one stage, we realize that no, it matters. Who speaks matters. Because that person who speaks about Krishna, it is not about just about hearing. It is about accepting the glories of Krishna and working according to the instructions provided. That requires a change in heart. And that change in heart can be brought on only based on how we whom we listen from and with what purity that person has spoken. So let's say a person is completely meaning high. He has drank many bottles of liquor, and uske baad he takes a book in of Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam in hand, and then he starts preaching. Will you accept words of such a person? Of course, you will not. Even if he's speaking about Krishna or Bhagavad Gita, you will not accept. But if a person is nicely dressed in dhoti, tilak, kurta, everything is there, has a japamala in hand and all that, then your inclination to accept what he is saying increases. Yes, we always come across people who dress up nicely but don't talk the right thing. But that is the next step forward to identify the right person internally and not just on external appearance. But the starting point of that is the the external appearance. And that is what Shukadev Goswami is also highlighting here, that these factors do constitute a right behavior. This right posture, right place, right time, right mentality, and all. These bring about some purification and then they help a person grow in the spiritual path. Okay. So we'll move on. Anybody wants to add any point about what we did last week, or shall we move on to verse 31 today? Sushil Prabhu, के चालू करें?
No, it's okay, Prabhu. Because the thing started when Parikshit asked Sukdev Goswami where the mind is to be applied and how to concentrate fully on that. And then Sukdev Goswami, I think, thought of first explaining the Virat Roop of the Bhagwan and then come to the next thing.
Yes.
That's what we gathered last time.
Perfect.
So that
perfect.
now whatever is coming is the description of the Virat Roop.
Virat Roop, yes. And it continues. Yeah, you're correct. So let's read verse number 31. Chandamsyanantasya shiro grunanti damshtrayamah sneha kala dvijani haso janonma dakari chamaya Duranta sargo yadapanga moksha. Anybody? Translation?
They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaws of teeth are Yama, the god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most illusory material energy is his smile. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. According to the Vedic assertion, this material creation is the result of the Lord casting a glance over the material energy, which is described herein as the most alluring illusionary energy. The conditioned souls who are allured by such materialism should know that the material temporary creation is simply an imitation of the reality, and that those who are captivated by such alluring glances of the Lord are put under the direction of the controller of sinners called Yamraj. The Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth. The intelligent person who can grasp these truths about the Lord becomes a soul fully surrendered unto him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So why is this being taught? And that's one thing we should know. So what happens is these are the things that we come across on a very regular basis. Now today Vedic hymns are not spoken so regularly, but in those days, for everything, whether it's a daily puja or any auspicious thing, certain set of verses from Rigved, Yajurved, and all that were spoken on a very the frequency was very high, right? So one used to come across these chanting on such a regular basis that because of this hymns coming on the ears on a regular basis, the people were able to remember the Lord. And this used to be the connection. So you hear a Vedic hymn, then you can immediately understand, okay, this relates to the Lord. Okay, now here in this context, Shukadev Goswami is saying that this is like the cerebral passage of the Lord. Okay. Then the jaws of teeth are Yama. So when we eat food, the food is soft, the teeth are hard. So the hard teeth, they crush the soft food, and then it helps us digestion. So what happens practically, that whatever hardness was there in the food, okay, that has become far more softer now because of the continuous process of chewing. So what happens is, similarly, when a person is a kind of carries out sinful activities, so that person has become hard at heart, because of which that person needs some kind of punishment to make his heart softer, and that such a kind of a punishment is given by Yamraj. So there this, it relates so perfectly that when you see the teeth of the Lord, you should be able to remember Yamraj. Or when you see Yamraj or hear about Yamraj, you should be able to remember the Lord. Okay. Now, the linking of all of these factors also, Prabhupada has nicely put that when the Lord smiles, okay, it actually invites us to him. But if we do not go to the Lord, then what will happen? We are going to go to Maya. So the smile is compared with Maya. So either you are with the Lord or you are with Maya. So if you fall prey to that smile, and then instead of going to the Lord, you go to the Maya, then there is a good chance that your tendency to commit sin will increase, and which will finally take you to the teeth of the Lord, which will, when the smile opens, you see the teeth also. You go to the teeth, and then you will go to Yamraj also. So very nicely connected, all of this. So when we understand this, then there is a high probability that we will surrender to the Lord. Hare Krishna. So let's move on. Vrido Dattaraush Dhara Evalo Bho Dharmastano Dharmapatosya Prushtham Kastasyam medhram vrushanau cha mitrau kukshi samudra girayo sthita sangha. Anybody? Translation purport.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Modesty is the upper portion of his lips, hankering his chin. Religion is the breast of the Lord, and irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals, and the
Mitravarus.
Mitravars are
Varunas.
Varnas are his two testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You can read the purport also, Mataji.
The Supreme Lord is not impersonal, as misconceived by less intelligent thinkers. Rather, he is the Supreme Person, as confirmed in all authentic Vedic literatures. But his personality is different from what we can conceive. It is stated here that Brahmaji acts as his genitals and that Mritavarnas are his two testicles. This means that as a person, he is complete with all bodily organs, but they are of different types with different potencies. When the Lord is described as impersonal, therefore, it should be understood that his personality is not exactly the type of personality found within our imperfect speculation. One can, however, worship the Lord even by seeing the hills and mountains or the oceans and the sky as different parts and parcels of the gigantic body of the Lord. The Virat Purusha and the Virat Rupa, as exhibited by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, is challenging to the unbelievers.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So, what are we trying to mainly understand? Is two things. One is the Lord is not impersonal, right? So, if the Lord were impersonal, firstly, all of this description would not be required to be given by Shukadeva Goswami. And the other aspect of describing this is because we wander around in the material world, we come across many objects which are part of the material world. And because we see this on a regular basis, there is a good chance that we may get drifted away by the beauty of that particular object. To avoid that and to be able to remember Krishna or the Lord in any form that we see in the material world, this description is very helpful. Okay, we will go ahead, we will see, and many of the speakers who came here and previously also we spoke about it, that this Virat Roop that Krishna or Shukadeva Goswami is talking about now, it is actually meant for very beginners who want to walk on the path of spiritual life. Okay, we will talk about this one as we end the chapter, but just try to think about this point as to the Virat Roop is a bridge, kind of a bridge between the impersonalism, that means somebody who considers the Lord as formless, and the Lord having a form. This is a bridge. If the bridge were not there, then it would make a bit difficult to imagine for the impersonalists, it would become a bit difficult to imagine the Lord having a form. And that is where this description comes into picture. Now, why Brahmaji is compared to the genitals? That's because Brahmaji is the first procreator. So when Brahma did tapasya, which we will learn in the subsequent chapters in this canto itself, when he did tapasya, okay, at that time, Lord Krishna was very happy with him, and then he took him to his Vaikuntha planet, or I think Goloka Vrindavan. And after showing everything, he told him, now you need to go back and you need to start creating the world based on the knowledge that I have given you via Vedas. Based on this knowledge, he created the world. Then Garbhodakshay Vishnu entered in it. Then the life was created. Then Shirodakshay Vishnu entered as Paramatma in the heart of every living being. And then the activities of, meaning the procreation also started. Now, all of this being done, the creation aspect being done by Brahma, okay, he is linked with the genitals, which is also used for procreation aspect. Okay. So there is a link between the organ or the object which performs a certain duty with the relevant demigod or the part of a body or something like that, with who performs a similar activity. So that's why this link is being uh, talked about. Modesty in the lips, when he says, upper portion of the lips, uh, the upper portion of the lips is where, when we generally see a person, we realize the smile, or that modesty, or basically when when somebody is shy about something, when we look at the lips itself, we realize how shy or how shameless they are. So that also relates with the lips, and that's why it is talked about from the quality of modesty. Hare Krishna. Please let me know in case there is any point that you would like to add, or if you have any question. Verse number 33. Nadyosya nadyotha tanuruhani mahiruha tanor nrupendra anantavirya shwasitam matarishva gativarya karma guna pravaha.
Translation.
Yeah.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri.
O King, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Purport. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly taught by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reaction of modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do with personally, as he is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In Brahma Samhita 5.48, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchangeable Virat Purush. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of supreme truth are more troubled than those who are intelligently conceived of the personal form. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So anybody remembers, or for at least those people who have completed studying Bhagavad Gita, where in Bhagavad Gita has he mentioned similar description? Like so and so part of the material world is so and so part of his body. Anybody?
I think during when he shows his Virat Roop, no?
Yes,
Or
correct.
the
Yes, correct. So when he shows the Vishwaroop, that time this is spoken. And then there is one more place that also Krishna mentions. Now, when in the 11th chapter in the Vishwarup Darshan Yoga, when it is described, there are two people who describe this. Partially Krishna describes, but more importantly, Sanjay and Arjun describe the whatever they are seeing. But there is one more place that is in the 15th chapter. Okay, when he says Urdhvamulam Adha Shakham, the material world is the upside down reflection of the spiritual world. And then for around 5 to 7 verses, he talks about how the various objects of material world relate to the spiritual world. At that time also he talks about rivers and all that. Now, the key point is to understand that the rivers or these trees, they perform certain function. These functions are similar to what the respective organ of the body also does a function. Okay. Now, the point to be understood is if you consider the Lord having a form, the process of moving forward on the spiritual path becomes simple. If you consider the Lord as formless, it is not that it is impossible to reach to the Lord, but the process, the path is very difficult. Okay. Now, can somebody say where in Bhagavad Gita has the Lord mentioned that this path is difficult? At one place, Prabhupada has mentioned in 12.5, it has been talked about, right? So, kleshodhika tarastesham avyakta satta chetasam. Okay. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested and impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Very important point. You think the Lord is formless and you are trying to worship him accordingly. He doesn't reject such a worship. He doesn't say, no, I will not accept. He accepts it. But because you are ignoring his personal feature, which is actually what he wants us to do as worship, that's why he is saying that I am telling you, you worship me in the personal form, but you still want to worship me in the impersonal form, fine. But you will find it a bit difficult to walk towards me. So the background to this particular verse is until the end of 11th chapter, Bhagwan has spoken about various of his forms. So first is the formless version, okay, Brahman Swarup. Then he talks about the two-handed Shamasundar Roop. Then he shows the four-handed Vishnu Roop. Then he shows the Vishwaroop. Then he talks about the Kala Roop also in the time form in the 11th chapter. Okay, so many different things are spoken. Arjun, as a representative of people like us, he asks an obvious question: what should I do? Which one should I worship? That is when Krishna tells him that this form that you are able to see, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. So the Lord also wants us to worship his personal form. That's why he says that I'm telling you something, you don't want to do it, but at least I'm not rejecting, I'm accepting it, but you will find you'll take time. So Lord knows what is the right way to do. And if you don't follow the right path, there will be different kind of results. Okay. Now, the other point is meaning all of these universes, Brahmas, the whole life. Anybody knows what is the total duration of Brahma's life? Who can say that?
you were told some number, right? I think it is some 60,000 something. I remember.
No, it goes in trillions.
4320 into
Sorry?
1000, I think.
नहीं क्या, sorry, I couldn't hear.
43 lakhs 20,000 into 1000, I think it is something like this.
4 yugas, 1000 into 4 yugas.
हाँ, okay.
Even 1.4 trillion, I think.
Okay, so the correct number is 311 trillion 400 billion years. And that is the life of Brahma, which is the same as the life of the whole universe also. So there are many destructions, partial destructions that happen during this time, but the final destruction happens at the end of the life of Brahma. Okay, and we may think that this is like unimaginable number and such a long life he has and all that, right? But Brahma Samhita 5.48, it states that at the when Mahavishnu exhales, okay, in every breath that comes out, he creates thousands and millions of universes. And every breath that he takes in, he destroys thousands and millions of universes. So that is the duration of the breath of one breath of Mahavishnu, which we think is such a huge time period. Okay, and where we learn this calculation, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyat Brahmano Vidu 8.17 in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, purposely Bhagwan uses the life of Brahma as a measurement to tell us that even this quantity of life is destroyable, is destructible. Nothing in this material world is permanent. We may think that हमारा 100 years of life होगा, 80, 70, 90 years जो भी होगा, that is our life, that is so huge. Let me make this plan, that plan, earn money, this money, and that whatever it is, and that pleasure, that is going to get destroyed. It will come back to zero. Okay, तो जो meaning 100 years में नहीं हो सकता है, then we may think अरे ठीक है 311 trillion years का life मिलेगा तो let me enjoy करके. तो he is saying that also is destroyed, that also becomes zero. To understand the magnitude of the life, despite that quantity or despite the magnitude, it undergoes destruction. इसके लिए ब्रह्मा के लाइफ के बारे में उधर बताते हैं वो. Now, what are we trying to understand? That basically that this quantity of life, or for that matter, anything as part of the material world, will undergo destruction. So it is better that we link these objects to the body of the Lord rather than trying to generate material benefit out of these objects. Yeah. So जब river दिखती है तो people may think कि okay, river rafting करने जाते हैं या रिवर में स्विम करने जाते हैं, और लेट मी टेक द वाटर ऑफ द रिवर एंड देन डू समथिंग अबाउट इट विच विल ब्रिंग मी मटेरियल एंजॉयमेंट. So instead, if we try and look at the river as the winds of the body of the Lord, then it is actually helping us relate the material object with the body of the Lord and be able to remember the Lord and then work towards going back to the Lord. That should be the objective behind watching all of these material objects. This is what we should take as the conclusion, the essence of this description. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Shall we move on? Any question? नहीं है ना, चलो ठीक है. So verse 34. ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्ध्यां कुरुवर्य भूम्नः अव्यक्तम् आहुर्हृदयं मनश्च स चन्द्रमा सर्वविकारकोशः.
Hare Krishna. Translation. O best amongst the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of days or nights are his dress, are the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes.
Okay. So the moon is considered to be one of the best places to enjoy material life. So now here we may not have seen scientifically any life on the moon so far. Okay, but our Vedas teach us, okay, how to reach to the moon and what kind of enjoyment will one get over there. So that, and the process also is explained there. What I mean to basically reach to the moon. Now, there is also one reference to the moon in the, I think, the 14th verse of 15th chapter, where Krishna says, I am the moon, moonlight, because of which the vegetation happens. Uh, so the plants, they consume the moonlight at night, and then it helps the vegetation. Now, the mind is considered to be either a friend or the enemy, right? But in the case of Krishna, obviously the mind is the best friend. So that moon is given that particular place. That is the importance of moon in spiritual life, uh, as per the Vedic tradition. Now, there's not much to elaborate here, but the point is, every time we see mornings or evenings or nights or daytime or nighttime, okay, we remember that the view of the surrounding changes completely, right? It's very dark at night. Okay, we may not be able to see much, or it may be very bright in the morning. Things are very much visible. We tend to act as well, right? So it can be seen as a change of color, or it can be seen as a change of dress also. So that's why it is kind of a graphically linked with the dress of the Lord. So he changes. And if you look at it in another way, in almost all Hindu temples, wherever the worship is done very nicely, okay, as per the vidhi, as per the shastra, and especially you will see in ISKCON temple also, uh, around 4 times the dress of the Lord is changed. So before sleeping, he is put into a night dress. Then in the morning, the dress are changed, and worship is done. Then again at around 7:30 times, 7 o'clock times, the dress is again changed. And again at around 12:30 or 4 o'clock times, depending on how they are observing, the dress is again changed. So 3 to 4 times the dress changes on a regular basis. So which is a kind of a frequency, similar frequency of the change in the day and night also, right? So meaning the speed, I should not say, not frequency. And based on that, then you can also link the daytime, nighttime with the dress of the Lord, and then remember him also. So while learning all of this, the objective is to be able to remember the Lord, and which these material things help us remember him. So when you see the clouds carry water, you will be able to remember the hair of the Lord also. And when it is meaning kind of daytime, the sun is very bright and very strong, then you won't be able to remember Krishna, you will be able to remember me. Okay. Hare Krishna. So let's move on to verse number 35. Vijnana Shaktim Mahima Mananti Sarvatmano Antah Karanam Giritram Ashwashvatar Yushtra Gaja Nakhani Sarve Mruga Pashava Shroni Deshe. Translation.
The principle of matter, Mahatattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by expert, and Rudra Deva is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephants are his male and wild animals, and all quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So let's look at just one particular point here, the principle of matter, Mahat Tattva, right? So Pradhan is there, Mahat Tattva is there, and Radhapat Pankaj Prabhu and even Krishna Swarup Prabhu has so nicely explained what is Pradhan, how is it activated, converted to Mahat Tattva. From there, what happens, right? The three modes of material nature come. When ignorance is, mixed with them, then ego is created, mind is created, and all of that, right? So the theory of creation has been talked at that level. So what he is saying is Mahat Tattva, which is the origin of everything that comes later, including Pradhan, including the three modes of material nature and all that, is the consciousness of the Lord. Okay, why consciousness is important? Anybody? Can anybody say why the consciousness is so very important? Who can say? Anybody?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Because of consciousness, we have life. Otherwise, there won't be life without consciousness.
Yeah,
Chetna.
correct. So consciousness is there not because of life, but consciousness is there because of Atma. Yeah. So there are the key characteristic of Atma is consciousness. Right. Now, when you have two bodies in front of us, one is a dead body and one is a living body. Right. The only difference between both of them is in the dead body, the Atma is absent. In the living body, Atma is present. Because the Atma is present, that's why the consciousness, you may have learned in second chapter, the Atma pervades the entire body. So it is not that the Atma goes around the whole body constantly, or it is not that it is spread throughout the body. It is spread in the form of its consciousness. My hand is conscious right now. My eyes are consciousness. My lips and my tongue is conscious. Why? Because it is performing, it is obtaining the consciousness from the Atma. The moment my Atma leaves this body, then the consciousness will not exist. So the way the Atma is important to the body, similarly, from the function of Virat Roop perspective and the relation of that Virat Roop with the material world, the Mahat Tattva is as important to the Lord's body. So that's why it is said as it is a consciousness. But on a practical basis, the Lord and the soul of the Lord are non-different. The Lord is absolute. In our case, our soul and our body are two different things. So when we leave the body, the Atma leaves the body. That time, the Atma is physically at a separate location than the body. But when it comes to the Lord and his Atma are non-different. They are one and the same. Okay. So there is no difference of consciousness being in the Lord and being out of the Lord. That is not possible. But because we are studying Virat Roop here, and it is a figurative explanation and meant for beginners to be able to realize the presence of a personal aspect of the Lord, that's why this consciousness is talked about as a kind of the Mahat Tattva. Okay, because it relates very closely with the material world. Hare Krishna. So let's look at verse 36. Vayam sitadvya karanam vichitram manurmanisha manujo nivasah gandharva vidyadhara charanapsarah swara smruti rasurani kaviryah.
Varieties of birds are indications of his masterful artistic sense. The father of the mankind is the emblem of his standard in intelligence. Sorry, Manu, the father of the mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings, like the Gandharvas, Vidyadhars, Karana, and angels, all represent his musical rhythm, and demonic soldiers are representation of his wonderful prowess. The artistic sense of the Lord is manifested in this article. Colorful creation of various varieties of birds like the peacock, parrot, and cuckoo. The celestial species of human being like the Gandharva and Vidyadhars can sing wonderfully and can entice even the minds of heavenly demigods. Their musical rhythm represents the musical sense of the Lord, and how then can he be impersonal? His musical taste, artistic sense, and standard intelligence, which is never fallible, are different signs of his supreme personality. The Manu Samhita is the standard law book for humanity, and every human being is advised to follow this great book of social knowledge. Human society is the residential quarters of for the Lord. This means that the human being is meant for Lord God realization and association with God. The life is a chance for the conditioned soul to regain his eternal God consciousness and thus fulfill the mission of the life. Maharaj Prahlad is the right type of representative of the Lord in the family of Asuras. None of the living beings is away from the Lord's gigantic body. Each and every one has a particular duty in relation to the supreme body. Disruption in the matter of discharging the specific duty assigned to each and every living being is the cause of disharmony between one living being and another. But when the relation is re-established in relation with the Supreme Lord, there is complete unity between all living beings, even up to the limit of the wild animals and human society. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed this living unity in the jungle of Madhya Pradesh, where even the tigers, elephants, and many other ferocious animals perfectly cooperated in glorifying the Supreme Lord. That is the way to peace and amity all over the world. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
yeah. So this is the power of purport of Srila Prabhupada. So whatever the topic is, and that is the not just the art or knowledge, but it is the devotion of a pure devotee towards Krishna. A pure devotee never would want to drift away from Krishna for not even a moment. But if he is presented some kind of situation like this, then he applies his intelligence to link that situation and the components of that situation back to the Lord. So look at this point now. The variety of birds, okay, is his artistic sense. So Prabhupada relates that with what is so aesthetic about it, the beauty of the birds. Okay, so may it be peacock, may it be cuckoo, whoever it is. Right? So whenever you see such a beautiful animal or a bird, you will be able to relate that with Krishna. Why? Because that beauty comes from Krishna. So after speaking so many different opulences in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, almost at the end, in the second last verse of this 10th chapter, Krishna says, Yadyad vibhuti mat sattvam shrimad urjitam evava tattadevavagachatvam mama tejo amsha sambhavaha. He's saying, so whatever beautiful creations you see in this material world, remember that it is just a spark of my splendor. Okay, so when you see a beautiful peacock, you should say that, okay, that this beauty in the peacock has come because of Krishna. Because Krishna is beautiful, that's why he has lent a spark of his beauty to the peacock, and that's why peacock looks very beautiful. Because Krishna is kind of, ferocious. He can kill any kind of demon. That's why the ferociousness has come in the wild animals also. Otherwise, we will not be scared of the wild animal, right? Are we scared of an ant? No. We are scared of wild animals because wild animals are ferocious, and they have received that ferociousness from Krishna. Okay. Now, when we talk about somebody who is intelligent, where does this intelligence come from, right? So when we say, okay, so and so person discovered electricity and he's able to make a lamp out of it and all that, who gave that idea into the brain of that person to generate electricity in that manner. So when during one of our discussions, and there were few atheistic people in the discussion, we had a interesting discussion. I asked them that, can you show me one particular thing, okay, which has one particular creation of a human being which has been created automatically, meaning not a creation of human being, which has become created automatically. You take a car, you take a mobile, you take a building, you take anything and everything in this world, okay, it has been created by somebody. Either it is created by nature or it is created by human being. Can you tell one thing which has been created automatically? Even when the sand is moved by the air or wind and beautiful designs are created on the desert, still, although the air is not visible to us, but we can feel the air and we can understand that it is the air which is moving the sand, and these beautiful impressions on desert are created. So there is nothing that gets created automatically. So in such a scenario, how can you say that the nature also has been created automatically? So such a beautiful organized nature we have, wherein Prabhupada mentions disruption in the matter of discharging the specific duty assigned to each and every living being is the cause of disharmony between one living being and another. So when one of the principles of nature is the output or the waste of a particular living entity becomes the input or something which should be consumed by another living entity. So the trees produce vegetables, fruits, flowers, right, which we consume. Our waste is consumed by somebody else. Their waste is consumed by somebody else, and that way the whole cycle of nature is completed. When the water comes down in the form of rain, it goes to various rivers, lakes, ponds, and then finally goes to the ocean. Then the sun evaporates that water, goes into clouds, and then the clouds rain. Even there also the proper cycle is there. And this cycle, okay, has not got created automatically. If things were to get created automatically, at least one thing in the last 5,000 years should have been created, which we should know. We do not know anything that has been created automatically. So there is a cycle of activity in each and every living as well as non-living thing in the world. And when this cycle is disrupted, it causes disharmony, right? We see climate change happening today. We are doing something which is against the nature, which we are not supposed to do, and that causes disharmony. So when we create huge amount of plastic, it creates problems to some other living entities, right? And that causes either extinction of that species altogether, or at least some kind of discomfort to them. And that is what Prabhupada is saying, that it causes disharmony between two living beings. Now, when he gave that example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's a bit out of topic to discuss here. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while on the way from Puri to Vrindavan, he went across various forests. And in these forests, he was able to harmonize even the wild animals in the service of Krishna. Okay, which is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that is the perfect peace. Okay. Whereas what we are trying to do, and Prabhupada has always been vocal about United Nations, that despite being functional for so many years, they haven't been able to bring about peace in the world. Yeah? Because the formula by which peace is being generated, that formula in itself is wrong. When you take off God from the equation altogether, no formula can work perfectly in terms of bringing about peace in the world. One point I would like to add about Manu Samhita also, that Manu Samhita, okay, who is Manu? Anybody remembers?
Manu
Father
is
of
the
man.
son of Brahmas.
Sorry. There were multiple voices. Manu is
Father of mankind.
mankind, right? Right. And who is the father of Manu?
Brahma.
Brahma.
Ikshwaku, is it?
Yeah, correct. And where did we learn this? Kidhar hai? Bhagavad Gita.
Chapter 4.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you remember the verse? Manu Rikshwa Kave Bravit. Okay.
Yeah, he says, I imparted this knowledge. And
Yes.
from there on, it came down and it was spoiled in between.
Perfect. Perfect. So he says, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to sun god Vivaswan. Vivaswan instructed to Manu, father of mankind, and Manu instructed to Ikshvaku. Now, the point to be understood here is Manu was given the task to prepare the laws for mankind. Now, many times in the current society, you will see people not reading or not understanding Manu Samhita properly, not understanding the purpose behind Manu Samhita properly. And you will see incidents of Manu Samhita being burnt, okay, as a matter of protest by certain people. Now, if you happen to get a copy of Manu Samhita, do spend some time to read about it. There are certain passages mentioned over there which people find a bit abnormal, but the logic behind that is what people fail to understand. Okay. It is mentioned that a person who does some abominable thing deserves to be killed. Okay, his punishment is death. Now, automatically a question can come: how can the Lord be so cruel that one mistake somebody did and he is supposed to be killed? Actually, okay, but this is applicable to people who do not wish to perform any kind of prayaschitta, any kind of repentance, because of which there is a tendency, there is a chance that he might commit the same mistake again. Now, for two reasons, such a person is required to be given the punishment of death. One is to avoid him from committing another mistake, such a grave mistake. That is one. And secondly, if he is not punished in this particular life, there is a very high chance that he will be punished in the next life, which will mean that he will go down further in the species of life, and he might go into animal species, and he might suffer a lot of distress, and the time that is required to reach to the Lord will increase. So what happens is, the person, when he gets that death punishment in this life, okay, it is like the result of his karma has been given to him, and he can start newly from the next life onwards. So that is the benefit behind it. But people fail to understand this, and then they term as Manu Samhita as discriminatory or illogical, or very cruel or something like that. How can such a law book be considered as a law book for mankind? And then in protest of that, they perform these actions. So the only way by which this can be removed is giving them proper knowledge. And unfortunately, people do not even understand the presence of soul today, let alone reincarnation. Okay. So when they do not understand the existence of soul, it is almost impossible for them to understand these deeper topics like Manu Samhita and all that. Okay, even Bhagavad Gita, if you may have noticed, Bhagavad Gita starts off with Bhagwan explaining us about the features of the soul, about the soul itself. So, because we are learning spiritual science, the word spiritual comes from the word spirit, spirit meaning soul, which is not matter. So you cannot study spiritual science without understanding the soul. The soul is the fundamental principle of anything and everything that is spiritual. So it is very much necessary. So that's why Bhagwan talks first about that topic. So those people who do not even understand the soul, do not accept the existence of soul, for them, such topics, the deeper topics like Manu Samhita, the law book, mankind, and all that, are very, very difficult to understand. Hare Krishna. Let's move on to verse 37. Brahma.
Prabhu, one confusion.
Ha, Prabhu.
See, I have read in the Bhagavatam that Brahma से स्वयंभू मनु और शत्रुआ पे हुए,
बराबर
तो ये कोई डिफरेंट मनु है जो हम
नहीं,
जिसकी
नहीं.
बात.
You are perfectly right. The progenitor of Manus is Brahma, and Brahma say the rishis also, the Saptarshi came, Brahma,
yeah.
Manu also came, right? So Brahma is the main Prajapati. So that's correct. But knowledge need not necessarily come in the same manner, right? So Vivaswan, like for example, Vivaswan, sun god, is the guru of Hanuman also, but Hanuman is not the son of sun god. So just because Manu took knowledge from sun god doesn't mean Manu is the son of sun god. So Manu still is the son of Brahma, but knowledge has come from Vivaswan. Okay, Prabhu?
Okay.
Okay, verse 37. Brahmananam kshatra bhujo mahatma vidurur angri shrita krishna varnaha nanabhidha bhijya ganopapanno dravyatmakah karma vitana yogah. Yeah, anybody? Who's reading?
Myself, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Translation. The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas. His arms are Kshatriyas. His thighs are Vaishyas. And the Sudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him. And it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Purport. Monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifices to many demigods under different names is mentioned in the Vedic literatures. But the suggestion made in the verse is that all those varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only the parts and parcels of the original whole. Similarly, the divisions of the orders of human society, namely the Brahmanas, the intelligent class, the Kshatriyas, the administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile community, and the Sudras, the labor class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice every one of them in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains, but with the progress of time, humans has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society therefore must learn to offer sacrifice not only with the clarified butter, but also with the other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory, and that will bring about perfection of human society. The intelligent class of men, or Brahmanas, may give directions for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facilities to such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Sudras may offer their manual labor, successful termination of such sacrifice. Thus, by the cooperation of all classes of human beings, the sacrifice recommended in the age, namely the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, may be executed for the common welfare of all the people of the world. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. So that's again, the aspect of the beauty of the purport of Prabhupada. So whenever it comes to the word sacrifice, Prabhupada will ensure that he mentions what is the right sacrifice in the current age of Kali Yuga. Okay. And if you remember, where was this mentioned? Anybody in Bhagavad Gita? Where is this mentioned? Sacrifice to demigod should be done.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. Exactly where?
He says, the demigods, based on our prayers, gets pleased and they offer you the benefits, and a person should offer it back to the god, otherwise he's committing a sin.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah. And this particular section, which starts from verse number 10 until verse number 16 in the 3rd chapter, that is called as Sakam Karma Yoga. Why it is important to know? Because Karma Yoga has multiple divisions. Two prominent divisions are the Nishkam and the Sakam Karma Yoga. Yeah? So Sakam Karma Yoga is when one performs an activity with the motive of obtaining some material benefit. Okay, that is Sakam, with calm, with lust, with vasana, okay, with some desire. So at that is faulty. Okay, so that's why Krishna does not recommend that. So because if you have some material desire, because of which you do a good karma, a punya karma, okay, you are required to utilize the result as well. Meaning, because you have done this, the Lord becomes responsible. The Lord has to oblige to you in giving the results to you. So let's say if I do a charity of say 100,000 rupees donated to certain temple. Okay, if I do it selflessly, excellent. That is a karma, meaning it does not give you sin, it does not give you pious activity also. But if I have a desire that because it is mentioned in so and so scripture that every rupee that I donate in a temple or in so and so month of say Kartik or Margashirsha and all that, I will get 10 times back to me. Okay, because if I donate with that mentality, the Lord has a duty to give this result to me. Now, this result, if I am able to get it in this life and close off the transaction completely in this life itself, well and good. But if not, then that forces me to take another life in another material body and get that money and enjoy that money. Now that means Sakam Karma Yoga is actually bad. Why? Because it does not help us achieve the objective of human life, which is stopping the cycle of birth and death. Because Sakam Karma Yoga continues the change by giving you body over body, another body, third body, fourth body. That's why Sakam Karma Yoga is not recommended. And that is where Sakam Karma Yoga, because it involves worship of demigods, done purely from a material motive, material benefit. That's why worship of demigods for such purpose is not recommended. That's why Krishna says in the 20th chapter of 20th verse of 7th chapter, Kamaistaiste Ritadjnana Prapadyante Anya Devata. Ritadjnana, Jnana meaning the knowledge is stolen. By whom? Kamaistaiste, meaning the various material desires have stolen the knowledge and intelligence of somebody, and that somebody is now worshipping demigods. Okay. In the 42nd and 43rd verse of 2nd chapter also, he spoke similarly. Vipaschitaha, avipaschita is the word he uses for people whose knowledge or intelligence is not right. Okay, such people, they worship demigods by observing the various sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. Now, this is not bad. Okay, as we have spoken it earlier, this is good compared to a sinful activity, but compared to akarma, compared to bhakti, this is bad. Okay, and because this involves sacrifice, and if you sacrifice for a material benefit, that is bad for you. That's why Prabhupada constantly talks about what sacrifice is good for us. Anybody knows what is the sacrifice one is supposed to do in Kali Yuga?
Harinam.
Spreading Krishna.
Reading, yeah, basically doing devotional service, right? And the best form of devotional service is, what is the best form of devotional service?
Taking the name of the God.
Yes,
Hare
Harinam
Krishna.
Sankirtan, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And where is it confirmed? Three different places, at least we should get the answer for this question. Where is it mentioned that Harinam Sankirtan is the best one?
One is in chapter 10, no?
Fantastic. Any, you know the number, the verse number?
Yeah, yeah. Japanam something.
Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi,
Ah.
10.25 it is. Yeah. So when Krishna is talking about the various opulences, he is saying, I am the best in every different category. And at that time, he talks about the category of sacrifices. Okay. He's saying, I am the of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, Japa, Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi, meaning of the various types of sacrifices written all over the Vedic scriptures. The best form of sacrifice is Japa, the whole chanting of holy name. Yeah, that is what Krishna says. So that is the reference number 1. Another reference, who gave this Hare Krishna Mahamantra first time to Narad Muni? Anybody? Sushil Prabhu, we have discussed about this in the form of a story. Who gave it to Narad Muni?
Those were those saints who were.
No. This was given by the father of Narad Muni.
That is Brahma.
Brahma, correct. Yes. So what happened in that incident? Anybody knows? कौन बता पाएगा? राकेश प्रभु?
No.
नहीं? Okay, so
हमारा एक ही सहारा है राकेश प्रभु.
Okay, so Narad Muni used to think that Brahma is the greatest of all living entities. But one day Narad Muni saw Brahma ji chanting. Okay, over his either bead bag or whatever, some kind of meditation he was doing. So he asked him, I used to think you are the greatest, but you are chanting, you are meditating on somebody. So are you not the greatest? Then who is the greatest? Then Brahma gives him huge amount of knowledge. At the end of it, then he talks about, Narad Muni asks another question, that it seems that Kali Yuga is very bad. So what is the medicine for people in Kali Yuga? At that time, Brahma says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He says, Iti Shodashakam Nam. Shodashakam meaning 16. Okay, he is saying this 16 syllable mantra, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. Okay, all the difficulties and miseries that arise in Kali Yoga, Nashanam, are destroyed by this 16 syllable mantra. Now we will say, okay, fine, but there are many other mantras. Why this and why not others? Okay, so he says, okay, let's twist the question. So we will say, hey, Brahma ji ko kya malum? Okay, so then he says, to express his knowledge, he says, Sarva Vedeshu Drushyate. I have learnt and understood all the Vedas and Vedic literatures. Now you cannot challenge such a person, right? Because he has complete knowledge of all Vedas. Then you will say, okay, fine, but there are other mantras also. Why not others? Then he confirms, Nataha Parataropaya. There is no other solution. There is nothing else that is as effective as the mantra that I have told you. So that is reference number 2. And reference number 3, anybody? Harer Nama, eva kevalam, kalau nastaiva gapiranyatha. Okay, the purposeful repetition of Harer Nama 3 times, and Kalau Nastaiva purposefully 3 times it is repeated to indicate the importance of it. That there is absolutely no other means of deliverance in Kali Yuga other than Harinam. Right? And because of these, you will find Prabhupada always mentioning, even if the literature, Vedic literature, whether Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, is recommending something from the context perspective, okay, it should not be wrongly understood by the person who reads only that part, only that context, and takes away an incorrect meaning. To avoid that from happening, Prabhupada always mentions the right thing also to do. And why this is important? Let's say you study only this particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. What is it that you will take back? That it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the lords, all the worshipable demigods, right? So there is a good chance that we might develop a different meaning than what is intended by the Lord. If somebody stops reading Bhagavad Gita at 3.12, or he reads only 3.10, 11, and 12, what is it that he will take back? He will think that, okay, it is right, it is good, it is, one is supposed to worship demigods, one is supposed to do sacrifices for them, one is supposed to keep a material motive behind these sacrifices, one is supposed to receive this benefit, and one is supposed to enjoy these benefits. This is the wrong message that one will carry back if the overall context is not understood. To avoid that from happening, Prabhupada always ends that with the correct action also, and the correct mentality that one is supposed to possess. Hare Krishna. We can move on to verse number 38. Yana savishvara vigrahasya yah sanniveshah kathito mayate sandharyate asmin vapushi sthavishte manah swabuddhya nayatosti pinchit. Translation? Anybody? Who's reading?
I'll read. Prabhuji.
Okay.
I have thus explained, translation by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has widely explained that the material nature is only an order-carrying agent of his. She is one of the different potencies of the Lord, and she acts under his direction only. As a supreme transcendental Lord, he simply casts a glance over the material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins, and the resultant action are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiation. All material creations is moving in the way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. Less intelligent persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot accommodate the thought of this inconceivable potency of the Lord Sri Krishna, by which he appears just like a human being. Bhagavad Gita 9.11. His appearance in the material world as one of us is also his causeless mercy upon the fallen souls. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, but by his unbound mercy upon his pure devotees, he comes down and manifests himself as the personality of Godhead. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external phenomenal feature of material manifestations than to the nominal principles of spiritual existence. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities, and it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience, because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of his transcendental form. And herein, Srila Sukadev Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond his gigantic features of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of his gigantic body, and by one's intelligence, only one can think of him in any manifestation of material world. The forest, the hill, the ocean, the man, the animal, the demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed on the Lord only and nothing else. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demonic challenges of godlessness and bring about gradual development of devotional service to the Lord. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neopathy student will gradually realize the hymns of Ishopanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of the God. Thus, one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are part and parcel of the supreme body. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. The purport was a bit big, but so nicely you read it. So I'll not go deeper into it because we have spoken about these topics quite a few times before. One of the points that strongly comes out is basically the purpose behind this whole thing, right? So as we spoke previously, the impersonalists will find it difficult to accept the personal aspect of the Lord. It is very difficult to accept. Meaning, if we took it like a hierarchy, right? So in 9.11, Krishna mentioned that avajananti mam mudha manushim tanum ashritam. So he's saying avajananti, meaning not that they do not know about me, they know about me in a wrong manner, especially when I descend in the human form. So people, Prabhupada translates it that fools deride me when I descend in the human form. So when Krishna comes in this 200 form, one hasn't developed that level of knowledge and understanding to recognize Krishna as the Supreme Lord. They think that he's just a normal, ordinary human being having 2 hands, 2 legs, and a face and all that, just like us. Okay. But if the same Krishna appears in the Vishnu form with 4 hands, then it is like, because we have heard the descriptions and all that in different places, it becomes a bit simple for us to accept. Vishnu hai, 4-handed form hai, to Lord ho sakta hai karke. Okay. So same way, when people find it difficult to accept the personal form of the Lord, they find it simple to accept the Lord as impersonal, not having any form. Even because the Lord is not visible and he may not necessarily come when we call for, that's why people develop an atheistic attitude towards the existence of the Lord. So people say God does not exist. If he exists, why can't he come in front of me? Okay. And because he cannot come in front of me, or because it does not come in front of me, that's why I proclaim that the Lord, there is no God. I'm happy to be an atheist. For such people, atheistic people as well as the impersonal people, it is simple for them to accept the Virat Roop compared to the acceptance of the two-handed form of Krishna. And that's why this acts as a bridge between either non-believers or believers in the formless version. For them, it acts as a bridge to the aspect of form of the Lord. So this is one very big and important key takeaway that we can take from this verse. Okay, otherwise, almost all points we have covered it previously. If you have any
Prabhu,
question, let me know. Yeah,
in the first paragraph, Prabhupada says, manifested one after another by the 6 kinds of gradual differentiations.
तो प्रभु याद है हम लोगों ने 6th चैप्टर 2nd चैप्टर में the 6 stages of a body किया था.
That is the senses and all these things.
No. The 6 stages of the body. So first it takes birth, then it grows.
Okay.
Then it produces, procreates.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
it remains for some time. It dwindles and it starts diminishing, and then it is destroyed. ये different 6 stages. So the material, because a body represents material elements, the body also takes over the characteristics of the material elements. So these material elements also undergo these 6 transformations. And at the end of these 6, it is destroyed.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. So the last verse of this chapter, I थोड़ा 2 minute आपका extra लूंगा, and we'll close off. I think this purport is a bit big. अगर हो सके तो purport we will skip and we will just talk at the translation level. If you are okay, then we will read the purport. सर्वधि वृत्य नुभूत सर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्न जने क्षितैकः तम सत्यमानंद निधिं भजेत नान्यत्र सज्जेद्यत आत्मपातः.
One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, such as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Should I read?
How about others? Are you okay if we read the purport? 5-7 minutes it may take. The purport is a bit big.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will just talk about the conclusion and we can close the class for today. Who's okay?
Okay, I'm okay.
Okay, Prabhuji, to read the purport.
Okay. If anybody is not okay, let me know. Okay, fine.
In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami Shira Sukdev. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of the Godhead as a supreme object of realization, worship and devotion. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against the material struggle for existence, and therefore by the illusionary grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. A yogi can attain miraculous successes in material achievements such as anima and lagima, by which one can become more minute than the minutest or lighter than the lightest. Or in the ordinary sense, one may achieve material benedictions in the shape of wealth and women. But one is warned against such allurements because entanglement again in such illusionary pleasure means degradation of the self and further imprisonment in the material world. By this warning, one should follow one's vigilant intelligence only. The Supreme Lord is one, and his expansions are various. He is therefore the super soul of everything. When a man sees anything, he must know that his seeing is secondary and the Lord's seeing is primary. One cannot see anything without the Lord's having first seen it. That is the instruction of the Vedas and Upanishads. So whatever we see or do, the super soul of all acts of seeing or doing is the Lord. This theory of simultaneous oneness and difference between the individual soul and the super soul is propounded by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Tattva. The Virat Roop or the Jignatic feature of the Supreme Lord includes everything materially manifested, and therefore the Virat or Jignatic feature of the Lord is the super soul of all living and non-living entities. But the Virat Rupa is also the manifestations of Narayan or Vishnu, and going to further on and on, one will eventually see that Lord Krishna is the ultimate super soul of everything that be. The conclusion is that one should unhesitatingly become a worshipper of Lord Krishna, or for that matter, his plenary expansion Narayan, and none else. In the Vedic hymns, it is clearly said that first of all Narayans cast a glance over matter, and thus there was creation. Before creation, there was neither Brahma nor Shiva, and what to speak of others. Sripad Shankaracharya has definitely accepted this, that Narayan is beyond the material creation and that all others are within the material creation. The whole material creation, therefore, is one with and different from Narayan, which simultaneously, and this supports the Achintya Bheda Tattva philosophy of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being an emanation from the glancing potency of Narayan, the whole material creation is non-different from him. But because it is the effect of his external energy, Bhairanga Maya, and is aloof from the internal potency, Atma Maya, the whole material creation is different from him at the same time. The example given in this verse very nicely is that of a dreaming man. The dreaming man creates many things in his dream. Thus, he himself becomes the entangled seer of the dream and is also affected by the consequences. This material creation is also exactly a dreamlike creation of the Lord. But he, being the transcendental supersoul, is neither entangled nor affected by the reactions of the such a dreamlike creation. He is always in his transcendental position, but essentially he is everything and nothing is apart from him. He, as a part of him, one should therefore concentrate on him only without deviation. Otherwise, one is sure to be overcome by the potencies of the material creation, one after another. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.7, Sarva Bhutani Konteya Prakritin Yanti Mamikam Kalpa Kasya Punas Itani Kalpa Dev Visarjami Aham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, every material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I again create. The human life, however, is an opportunity to get out of this repetition of creation and annihilation. It is a means whereby one may escape the Lord's external potency and enter into his internal potency. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Very difficult and a purport. Yeah. So,
Yes.
so Prabhupada, when he goes into philosophy, it is very, very difficult to understand. Many times we have to read the purport. Every word we have to read it in a proper analytical manner, after which we understand what he is saying. And that's the beauty of it anyway, meaning Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam are not, like story books which you can read it once even when you are half asleep and you will understand everything. Nahi hai waisa. And one of the main reasons why we find Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam to understand very difficult is because we are not pure enough, right? So agar pani hai, and let's say if you are pouring water may be perfectly clear, perfectly pure hoga, but if you are pouring it in on an impure stuff, it will get contaminated. The impurity will come into it. वही problem होता है when purest knowledge comes into impure people like us. That's why it becomes a bit difficult for the knowledge to perfectly in the most pure form to go inside our heart, because ऊपर अज्ञाने नावृतम ज्ञानम, we are covered by ignorance, we are covered by lack of knowledge. इसके लिए वो impurity है. So it becomes difficult for us to understand. The only alternative to this, as we talked about in the previous verse, is chanting. Yeah? Chant more and more and more and more in the best quality and improve our purity. At that time, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, the knowledge will start coming into us, into our heart by the way of the Lord. The Lord will start giving that knowledge to us. He will give that knowledge, right? एक पॉइंट सिर्फ इसके ऊपर बोलता हूँ, सॉरी 2 points will not take much of your time. So the 9th chapter में Krishna says, okay, I am in them but they are not in me, sort of, yeah. And which means when he creates, he says I am aloof from the creation, but then he again says that I am part of the creation. The creation is in me but I am not in the creation, sort of. So many complicated statements are there, and finally he says, behold my mystic opulence. Yeah, it is not simple to understand. So one way we can try to understand that is the Krishna as the Supreme Lord is separate and he creates his expansions. Okay, may it be Kshurodakshay Vishnu like Paramatma and all that, or Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and they basically facilitate the creation or the creation of life and entering into the heart of every living entity as Paramatma and all. So when he says Ekamshena Sthito Jagat, I am situated, although a single fragment, I am situated pervading entire world. That is the Kshirodakshay Vishnu that he is talking about at that point of time. And this oneness and difference simultaneously is called as Achintya Bhedabhed Tattva. So we can understand that Krishna Bahunam Janma Namante Jnanavanmam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. To understand that Krishna is everything is the highest level of knowledge. So that way we can say that all these material creations are also a part of Krishna. But until we reach that level of knowledge, we may consider him to be, the material creation to be different than Krishna. So both at the same time, it is one and it is different. And that is called as Achintya Bhedabhed Tattva. To understand that this material world is different from Krishna, okay, and to also understand this material world is part of Krishna, is the Achintya Bhedabhed Tattva. Okay, so what do we understand out of it and what are we supposed to do? That we have to offer anything and everything of this material world back to the Lord as a matter of service to him. Because Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam, everything that exists in this material world is owned by Krishna. Okay, so we will stop here now, and this way we end the first chapter of the second canto. Next week, we will start with the second chapter. Okay, any question, or we can stop it now? So no question, right?
Nothing
So we'll stop
specific.
with that.